What's up, everybody? Eric Pacheco with eXp Realty here with John Lambert, Geneva, out of Geneva Financial. He's a loan officer, mortgage broker, and he is here to help us explain to us, explain to me, explain to you, explain to everybody who's watching, who's curious about interest rates in the 3-2-1 buy down, and what does that mean for you? How does it help you if you are a buyer right now and you want to know what this means? Well, here's a great opportunity to hear from John Lambert, who's going to break it down to us. John, real quick, before you go into that, tell me a little bit about you. Tell everybody about you, where you work, and how long you've been doing mortgages.
Hey, everyone. John Lambert with Geneva Financial, and we're virtually nationwide. I'm here in Florida, in Orlando. So I do loans in Florida and Texas, both. But I've been in the mortgage business about 2 years now. Prior to that, I was in real estate, so very familiar with the market. In real estate for several years. So the product we're going to talk about today, the temporary buy down, is kind of a niche product, but it's good for this market and what's going on right now. So I've got a slide presentation. Hopefully it won't be too boring. Eric and I are going to bounce a few questions off each other and get you guys educated about what this is and what it can do for you. So Eric, I'm going to share my PowerPoint.
All right, share the PowerPoint.
We'll get started with that.
My ears are open, my eyes are on the screen, and I'm ready to learn. Okay,
so we've got 3 different temporary buy downs that you can potentially do. And we call them a 3-2-1, a 2-1, and a 1. Pretty straightforward. A 3-2-1 would last for 3 years. And the first year, it brings your interest rate down 3%. Second year, it brings it down 2%. Third year, it brings it down 1%. So a 2-1 is the next in line, and that gives you 2 years of temporary buy down. So first year, it goes down 2%. Second year, it goes down 1%. And then a 1 buy down, what we call a 1 is, or a 1-0, is basically a 1 year buy down. So it reduces your interest rate by 1% for the first year. So the difference, let's talk about the difference between those. And I've got an example for you here on a 3-2-1. So let's say your interest rate's 7% on a $300,000 loan. We're not doing any down payment on this, just to make it simple for the calculations. But basically, a 30-year fixed rate mortgage. Your principal and interest on that 7% would be $1,995.91. On a 3-2-1 buy down, your first year, it reduces your payment to $1,432.25. Saves you $563.66 a month for the first 12 months. Second year, $1,610.46 for your principal and interest payment. That saves you $385.45 a month for 12 months, 12 more months. And then the third year brings your payment to $1,798.65, which drops you $197.26 a month. Total savings over the first 3 years towards your mortgage is $13,756.44. That's a pretty good chunk. And so I think the next question is, how do you get this, and how does it apply to this market? Right now, we know the interest rates are a bit higher than they were last year, quite a bit. Interest rates fluctuate. So this is a little bit of a stopgap, I guess you could call it, for where the market is right now. Because we know interest rates are going to change. Eventually, they're going to go down. Nobody knows when. Kind of watching the financial market, the recession, and everything that's coming. And that's when interest rates are going to go down, and most people are going to refi at that point. So how does this work? Seller or the builder contributes the amount at closing to fund the temporary buy down. You can't pay for this yourself. So if you pay for it yourself, you're buying down points. That's permanent. They don't allow you to contribute to this. It has to come from the seller or the builder. And we'll get into that in a minute as far as why. Eric has a question. Yes, sir.
Question. So seller and builder contributes. That in my world, that will be called a credit, correct?
Correct.
I will need them to give us a credit, and it will be for $13,756, the savings, the cost that will go into the escrow account.
Yep. Basically, and down at the bottom of this slide, you guys will see what happens with those funds at closing is they go into an escrow account. that's held by your lender, and the lender contributes that portion to your payment every month to bring that down until it's exhausted, or until you refinance or sell the home. If you do that in the first 3 years of a 3-2-1 buy down, you either get that money back, refunded at closing, or if you refinance, they may apply it towards the principal. It depends on the agreement. So when you do this at closing, there's a temporary buy down agreement that's signed by the seller that they're contributing these funds for the buy down of your interest rate. So as far as the seller is concerned, you know, 13,000, it depends on the amount of the house that you buy and what they're willing to do. And Eric, that goes back to you as a realtor and, you know, what you can talk them into contributing. And that's why we have those 3 options. So a lot of times, you know, a seller may not go for the 3-2-1. It's too much, right? They don't want to give you $13,000. And that's not saying it's going to be $13,000. The way it's calculated is based on your interest rate that you get for your loan for when you go into contract. So it can vary quite a bit.
Okay.
But of course, you know, the more expensive the house, 300, 400,000, 500,000 or more, the more the amount is going to be for the contribution. So seller might say, I don't want to do that, but I'll give you $10,000 or whatever it comes out to for a 2-1 buy down or even a 1. So it's basically helping you through this time when the interest rates are a little bit higher to lower your payment. Gotcha. The one thing you want to keep in mind is we still qualify you on your full payment. So back to that first slide for a second. That payment for principal and interest is $1995.91. So you still have to be able to afford that. You know, this is temporary once again. So you want to make sure, and your lender wants to make sure that you can afford that payment once this is gone. Because once again, there's no guarantees except for death and taxes, from what I hear. So with interest rates, we don't know where they're going to be, when they're going to go down, when they're going to go up, if they're going to get worse or better. We always hope that they get better. We do know that in a recession, they typically do. And at that point, you would look at refinancing and bringing your interest rate down permanently. So moving on to the next slide. Why would a seller or builder contribute to this? Well, and Eric and I have talked about this a little bit. You know, we're kind of going from a seller's market to a buyer's market. We're in transition right now. Sellers and builders are offering incentives because they want you to buy their house versus their neighbors down the street, because there's quite a few more homes available right now. Correct, Eric?
Correct. We're seeing a larger supply of homes hit the market week over week and definitely month over month. And yes, I believe we are transitioning into that buyer's market. We are in that phase right now, transitioning. And sellers, you are correct. Sellers are offering incentives, closing costs, money, and credits. And that's when we can use those credits and give the buyers an option on how they want to use that credit. 3-2-1, 2-1, permanent, closing costs, etc.
Now you said permanent. Let me hit on that for just a second, if that's all right.
Yeah.
Permanent buy down is where you buy down your points. Points, just to tell you quickly, it's a bit more of a discussion, but basically 1 point costs at 1 point is 1% of your loan amount. So if you're buying down a point and it's a $300,000 loan, it's going to cost you $3,000. So what that actually does, though, it doesn't buy your interest rate down a full percent. Typically, and it depends on the lender, it's about 1/4% on the interest rate itself. So you're paying that much to bring it down 1/4%. Right now, interest rates are in the 7s. That can change, and it will change. Typically, it's not ideal to buy down your interest rate at this point permanently, because next year, if we go into a recession, interest rates are going to drop anyway. And you're not going to recoup that money that you spent at closing to bring that interest rate down. Now, totally your decision, depends on your circumstances. Everybody is different. So that's a conversation you want to have with your lender to see if it makes sense before moving forward on that point. The nice thing about this is if you can get a seller to contribute or a builder, then it's not money out of your pocket. And all it's doing is helping you with your payment for the first 3 3 years, 2 years, 1 year, whatever it comes out to be. So, Eric, back to you. Any questions?
I have a question about the points, but I don't want to go there yet. I'll save that. That was Angela. So that's a great, I want to piggyback off of that. But let's stay with the 3-2-1. And I got Angela's question about those points, and I can get to that in a little bit. But right now, do I have any questions? Well, the savings that they're saved, what if they do, can they refinance?
Yes.
So can they refinance in this 2-1, in that 2-year time? Can they refinance? Let's say the rates come down 12 months from when they started this 2-1. 12 months later, rates are down. They want to refinance. What is their options?
Yeah, absolutely. Typically, a lender wants you to pay 6 full payments on your mortgage before you can refinance. That's kind of the norm. It depends on your particular loan. And let me veer off course for just a second, Eric, on that. As far as what's available now for loans, types of loans for this 3-2-1 buy down or 2-1, right now it's for conventional loans, ones that go through Fannie or Freddie. And we're working on bringing this out for government loans. Government loans are like FHA, USDA, and VA loans. So that's coming, but it's not here yet. But check back with us and we'll let you know when that's available. So back to you, Eric.
All right. So you said 6 full payments, and then they can refinance. So that's pretty much 6 months. 6 months, right. And they can refinance. When they refinance, the money that's in escrow, that account, from what I understand, that money is refunded to them, right? They can collect that.
Yep. Like I said, it depends on the temporary buy down agreement that's signed and the verbiage in that agreement, but it's either going to go because this is not a lender contribution. On these particular scenarios, it's either going to go back to you as a refund at closing, or it will be applied to your principal that you owe on the house at your refi. One or the other.
Okay, that's a good reason to use it. Good reason to use it. What's the next slide? What we got next?
Next slide is my info and your info.
Oh, okay.
The temporary buy downs are pretty straightforward. So, it's not a lot of, it's just something that we want to get the word out there and how it works. So you're familiar with that. And then if you have more detailed questions, of course, we can address those.
So can I go back to that first slide when I see the example, the numbers?
Yeah.
So it's a temporary buy down. This is not permanent. This is for a short period of time. Why would a buyer go this route? What is their meaning, their reason for going this route?
Well, I think, back to in this market, with the way things are as far as interest rates, it's always good to be able to save a little bit of money. Last year we're sitting at 2-3% for an interest rate. Now it's more than double that because of inflation and everything that's going on in the market. So right now it makes sense, depending on your circumstances, of course, and what you're trying to do and how long you're going to stay in the home. But once again, that's a conversation for you and your lender. But right now it's a design, like I said, as a niche to help lower that payment until there's an interest rate that's available that brings your payment down permanent. So
I see the value.
Another way to save money.
Yeah, I see the value when they have to qualify. They have to be able to pay that full amount of $1,975, right? The initial note, and being able in this market where we're seeing homes on the market longer. We are transitioning. Sellers need to sell. The sellers that are on the market need to sell, and instead of reducing their prices, they're offering these incentives, and they'll be more flexible with their house that they're trying to sell, and we can probably get better terms for the buyer. So I do see value in this. This does make sense in this market.
Absolutely.
So that is a buy down. Now here's a question number 3. I had a question for you. Question: how does a temporary buy down differ from a permanent buy down? I think you answered it earlier, but let's focus on that right now. Let's get Angela's question out there, and you can answer that.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's pretty straightforward. Once again, temporary buy down, it lasts for 3 years, 2 years, 1 year. It's going to bring that down a little bit, 3%, 2%, 1%. Permanent buy down is back to where we're talking about buying points, how much they cost, and how much it reduces your interest rate. Right now, there's generally a point cost just to get the interest rate.
Right.
That's just the way the market is right now. So you're already paying points at closing, depending on, once again, it's a whole lot of factors. It's your debt to income. It's your credit score, everything else that a lender looks at to determine what your rate's going to be. So, and yeah, there's an option to buy it down further, pay more for points, but a lot of times it doesn't make sense because let's say it costs you $6,000 for points. You have to calculate how long would it take for you to recoup that investment, and are you going to stay in the house for that amount of time? And then the other factor is, are the interest rates going to go down in a year or two or 6 months? So then you just paid to buy down a rate that you could have gotten, you could have obtained without having to pay for it, without having to buy that down, in 6 months to a year. So there's a whole lot of factors involved in permanently buying down your rate. Like I said, the nice thing about this temporary buy down, it's not money out of your pocket. It's a contribution from the seller or the builder, and that way it just reduces it for you and gives you, really some of the pressure for the first little bit of time. It allows you to save that money or put that money back towards your loan to buy it down, to pay it down even faster. So you can apply that towards your principal, the money that you would save. It just really depends on your financial situation and what you want to do. So that's the advantages, I think, of a temporary buy down versus paying for points in a permanent buy down. Once again, it depends on your scenario and what you're looking to do with your purchase. So
thank you, John. Thank you. Now, to follow up with Angela's question, one more she has, how many points are you allowed to buy?
That depends on, and okay, so we're we're getting even deeper into buying down points. Just as an example, there's let's try and make this simple. Okay, we have qualified mortgages and non-qualified mortgages. There's only so much you're allowed towards closing costs and fees on a qualified mortgage, which is a conventional loan through, say, Fannie or Freddie. It's backed by Fannie or Freddie. So that's really depends on, and if you go FHA, USA, USDA, VA, all of those have different criteria for what percentage you can apply. And then there's just to make it more confusing, there's what we call bona fide points, which are points that you're actually paying for to reduce your interest rate. Like I said, right now, it doesn't really make sense. It depends on your scenario, but for the most part, it doesn't really make sense because it costs a lot of money to buy those down. Most people stay in their homes for 7 to 10 years on average. So you're not going to recoup that money that you paid at closing. So you really want to sit down and have your lender run those scenarios for you to see if they make sense before moving forward and making a decision.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate that. I hope that answers your question, Angela. All right. So how much we got a question here. How much does a 2-1 buy down typically cost on a conventional loan?
Well, back to that example that we had, and we just ran one for a 3-2-1. From what I'm seeing, a 2-1 buy down is about half. And there's a lot of factors. Once again, it depends on your interest rate, what interest rate you get for your loan as to how much it actually costs. So that would be something that your lender would calculate before you go shopping for a house, so your realtor's prepared for their negotiations with the seller, with the builder, to either do a 2-1 or even a 1 or a 3-2-1. And so, but looking at, just running scenarios, it's typically about half for a 2-1 buy down versus what it would cost for a 3-2-1. So like for this one, it would cost the seller $13,756.44. For a 2-1 buy down, and this is just throwing this out in the air, this is just a scenario, guys. Everyone's different. Right. You're looking at probably around 8,000 or 9,000 versus 13,000. So pretty big difference between that 2-1 and that 3-2-1. Right. The 2-1 good? Absolutely. Are we looking at rates potentially going down in the next year or two? Absolutely. We don't know for sure, because nothing's for sure. But we're talking about, we're going to see a recession at some point here. When that happens, the interest rates are going to reduce. So at that point, you can refinance. And in the meantime, you're not having to pay as much on your mortgage because you did a 2-1 buy down.
Right. And if you could afford the mortgage at the original mortgage, at the original note, saving this money until you hit the end of your buy down period, until you hit that end, you are in a still good position, right? Because you did put yourself where you could afford the mortgage, and for 2 years you saved the money. That money you saved, hopefully you put it to the side, and when the interest rates do come down, you're in a good position. If it doesn't come down, you'd still have that money saved that you can use.
Yeah, save it to buy down your rate when you refinance. Then you get an even lower rate at that point. Now that would potentially make sense. Or apply it towards your principal as you're going along. So that $563 a month you'd save in year number 1. If you put that towards your principal, that would be a huge reduction in the amount that you're paying for your mortgage and the interest that you're paying. So it really depends on each person. I know it's tough. It's easier to spend that money on trips, but you just got to make yourself responsible and then sock that money away or put it towards your mortgage to help pay it down even further.
Right. Keep educating them about, hey, this is temporary. This is temporary. This is temporary. Here's a question for you. When is it not worth to buy down a mortgage rate? Here's a question.
Well, I'm going to say 2 things. The temporary buy down, always worth it. It's not your money. Sellers contributing, builders contributing. So if you can make it happen, makes sense. Permanent, we went over that earlier, Eric, a little bit. As far as buying down points right now, a lot of times it doesn't make sense because of the market and where things are going. So that would be the time. I would say now would be the time when it wouldn't make a lot of sense to pay for a permanent buy down points. But once again, based on your scenario. So.
And that is our questions, my man, from our audience, from our buyers that I collected this week. The best questions I have here, and I wanted to thank you for coming out and explaining it, showing the numbers, and showing how this savings can help the buyers in this market, how a 2-1 buy down is beneficial in this, in this market. And if they are interested in it, I would love to have you explain this to them in person and in a Zoom with them if they want.
I'm gonna pop over, and this is Eric's info.
That's right, Eric Pacheco here in Pasco County, Orange County. I do business on the Tampa side and on the west side of Florida and the central side of Florida. And that is my email, ericpacheco@exprealty.com. And my phone number is 914-334-5980. I have 2 emails actually, Eric Pacheco Realtor. That's a better email for me. And if you have any questions for me, guys, hit me up anytime. Text me, email me, message me, DM me, anything you want. I'll answer. Right, John?
Absolutely. Same for me. As far as mine, we're gonna post a link to this, I'm sure, along with the video. So it's available. It's also gonna be on my website. Eric, I don't know if you're gonna put it on your website. I know you're still working on that. But you'll be able to go to the website, get a little more detail, and take a look at different types of loans that are available and ask questions there as well. So.
All right, John, quick question. What's the interest rates today?
They're higher than they were yesterday. When I looked this morning, we're probably sitting around 7.5% on average. But that could change in 5 minutes, guys. You just never know. So.
All right. Well, John, thank you so much. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
And, we are out, guys. We are out. This is the first one. We will come back next week with another video based on what you guys want to hear about. So again, message us, email us, call us. What do you want to learn about? And we can keep this going and educating you guys, and so you guys can be better buyers and better sellers in this market.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, John. Take care.
Thanks, Eric.